Hello and welcome to the News at 7, where we bring you more on the day's stories and from across Scotland's communities. Tonight, how public services in rural areas are under increased pressure from ageing populations.
Most people go south for better opportunities or more opportunities.
There's obviously a lot of jobs to be covered and fewer people of working age to do them.
That's the view from Shetland, and we also report from Argyll, where the average age has gone up more than 9 years in 2 decades. Also tonight, the volunteer litter pickers in the Borders going above and beyond.
It's not nice. It's not nice. Why would you want to come and visit Scotland when it looks like this?
They say the A1 has become a dumping ground and they want support from local and central government. And I've been chatting to Susie McCabe, one of the stars of the Glasgow International Comedy Festival. We'll also be discussing autism diagnoses in later life with someone who's had just that. And we'll have all the sport too with Lewis. What have you got for us tonight, Lewis?
Well, Laura, there's an intriguing clash between first and third in the Scottish Premiership tonight. We'll hear from a former Celtic and Dundee United player and how that one might pan out.
Hello, I'm Laura McKeever. Welcome to News at 7. Our population is ageing, and it turns out the parts of the UK that have aged the fastest over the past 20 years are all coastal or rural. And 7 of the 10 council areas where the average age increased the most are Scottish. In Argyll and Bute, Dumfries and Galloway and the Borders, the median age rose by 9 years, and the Western Isles and Orkney are also in the top 10 areas with an ageing population. But this also puts pressure on public services, as Andreas Wolff reports now from Oban.
The Snowdrop ladies in Lochgilphead are keeping fit, despite not being quite so young anymore. Overall, the UK population is ageing, but now a report from the Resolution Foundation found that it is ageing faster in rural areas than in the cities.
We see that the older places is where the fastest rate of ageing is happening, and it's the cities that in many cases are actually getting younger. And we think, that poses challenges for public services and for local leaders.
Around 10 years ago, there would have been about 15 pupils here in the village of Lochaw. Today, there are none at all. The school here has closed a long time ago, but more recently, several schools have closed across Argyll and Bute. Now, there is a shortage of young adults as well, though, which has an impact on all kinds of services, in particular social care.
We know that there's a challenge in providing some of those services and also having people access services depending on where they live. We also know that it's difficult often to attract and then retain specialist health and social care workers to work in remote and rural areas.
Island communities like Shetland face many challenges, with a reduced workforce, increased demand for healthcare, and a lack of affordable housing.
It's mainly housing and things that don't get people up here because there's not anywhere to stay, and the prices of where are available are a nightmare. So most people go south for better opportunities or more opportunities.
There's obviously a lot of jobs to be covered and fewer people of working age to do them. More people requiring care, that also takes people. So the fewer folk we have of working age, the harder it becomes to cover all the bases that we need to.
Increased life expectancy, fewer births, and immigration of older non-Europeans after Brexit are given as reasons for an ageing population. In rural areas, young adults also leave for the cities to work and study, which speeds up the trend there. Andreas Wolff, reporting Scotland, Argyll.
Right, let's get a roundup now of the stories making the BBC News app in Scotland. And the Met Office has issued a fresh warning for snow and ice as the wintry weather continues. Around 50 schools in the Highlands and a handful in Aberdeenshire remained closed today. A 67-year-old man's been arrested and charged after a 15-year-old girl was sexually assaulted in West Dunbartonshire. Police said the girl was approached by a man at a bus stop in Clydebank. First Bus has withdrawn 30 buses from its Glasgow fleet after technical failures. The vehicles are being temporarily replaced by ultra-low-emission diesel buses from across the UK. And Edinburgh will set its tourist tax at 5% of accommodation costs. City councillors will now decide whether to back the tax, which would take effect from July next year. And for more information on all of those stories, you can scan the QR code right there on the screen. It will take you to the BBC Scotland News app, where there is much more for you, including Europe's biggest battery farm, which is being built on a coal mine near Les Mexico. Next tonight, autism is a lifelong condition that affects at least 56,000 people in Scotland. Campaigners say adults are waiting too long for an NHS diagnosis, and they also say more adults are seeking assessments after their children have been diagnosed. Well, we'll speak to one man who learned he had autism later in life in a moment, but first, some reaction from the Royal College of General Practitioners. They say it's concerning that more people are turning to the private sector for help, and they add that GPs are sympathetic.
As GPs, we're acutely aware of the pressures on the system, how busy it is, and how many people there are who are seeking some form of help. I've got a lot of sympathy for people who are looking for answers about what they suspect to be an autism diagnosis.
Well, let's speak now to Sean McCaskill. He's the Director of Autistic Knowledge Development and someone who has also been diagnosed with autism in adulthood. Sean, welcome.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you so much for coming in. I wonder just first of all what your thoughts are about the services available for diagnosis and the fact that GPs and the rest of the NHS point out that they are just under so much pressure, particularly just now.
I think first of all, picking up the point of the NHS being under so much pressure, we've got a health system that actually really looks, particularly when it comes to mental health, at kind of managing symptoms rather than looking at root causes. So I'll give you examples. So if you look at disordered eating, there's a lot of research that says probably about 80% of people that struggle with disordered eating are probably autistic. There's new research just been published that 1 in 3 autistic adults will experience addiction at some points within their life. If you're looking at people with untreatable depression, clinical anxiety, self-harming, suicide, actually quite a lot of this, if you get to the root cause of it, is quite often people who are undiagnosed autistic. And certainly when it comes to taking pressure off the system, our organisation has designed a pre and post diagnostic support service where we've taken a bold new step where we work with people who are self-diagnosed as well as formally diagnosed, and we've found that actually just with a 6-week short support delivered by other autistic people who are also professionals, we've got some really good figures from this. So,
so it's really helping and succeeding. Tell us more about your diagnosis, because that came later in life.
So it was in my mid-30s, and there's anecdotally 2 main ways that I see later in life adults realise that they're autistic. The first is through having children and loved ones getting a diagnosis, and people start to look at it and think, actually...
And we've heard about that today, indeed, haven't we?
I can see myself there. And then the other is through work-related stress and burnout, which actually, that's my own journey there. So actually, I was a workaholic. I was very good at what I did, but I had a severe burnout and a mini stroke, and it was kind of working out afterwards there, kind of how I was dealing stress that led me to realise that I was autistic.
How does a diagnosis help you then, particularly in the working world as an adult?
Oh, it's been huge. So actually not realising that you're autistic and trying to navigate the world, particularly navigate the workplace, can cause a huge amount of problems. And also there's masking, which is basically trying to hide to the world that you're autistic, which causes a huge amount of stress, anxiety, depression, and can lead to a lot of suicide. So actually, for me, realising that I'm autistic and ADHD has been incredibly life-affirming and life-changing. And I've been able to look back at my life and think, because I have an autistic and ADHD brain, it's been at the root of all of my successes, as well as having caused me some challenges in the past as well.
OK, well, really interesting to hear from you tonight, Sean. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Cheers. And there has been a huge response to this story across BBC Scotland News today. Here is just one comment that came in from a parent whose daughter had a diagnosis for autism. It says, "I'm 45 and have struggled my whole life with not fitting in and being misunderstood. I need a diagnosis for myself to finally validate my life of struggles, and so I hope I get it." Always really good to hear from you. If you do have anything that you'd like to tell us, if it's something you'd like to share, a story you'd like us to cover here on the programme, please do get in touch. Our email address is news7@bbc.co.uk. Now, litter pickers along the length of one of Scotland's busiest roads are calling for help in tackling what they describe as an epidemic of rubbish. Volunteers in the Borders claim that the A1 road between the English border and Edinburgh has become a dumping ground. David Knox has met them, and a warning that you might squirm a bit about some of the things they've had to deal with.
This is just one lay-by on one of the busiest roads in Scotland, the A1, and from the moment you arrive, you can see there's a problem.
Let's go, let's have a look and see what there is.
But the old baggers are here. Volunteer litter pickers from around Berwickshire, along with a few friends from neighbouring groups.
I've just tossed out there some bottles of pee. It's not nice. It's not nice. Why would you want to come and visit Scotland when it looks like this?
Once you get north of Dunbar, say the stretch between Dunbar and Haddington, have one look and it is appalling. It is thick with rubbish.
We've been here for no more than 10 minutes, and look at this. These are bottles of urine. I've counted them. There's more than 30 bottles here. And what they're telling me is this is not unusual. And this is the unpleasant task they face before the bottles can be recycled. The volunteers believe the problem with litter along the A1 from the border with England all the way to Edinburgh is ever increasing despite their best efforts. What they want now is a more joined-up approach from the authorities for better enforcement, maintenance and education. Transport Scotland and contractors Bear say they welcome the community efforts and are aware of the problems. They add that they are already working closely with local partners and they have their own litter picking teams regularly patrolling road verges. For the old baggers, their only reward for a job well done is a quick cup of tea and then on to the next lay-by. David Knox reporting Scotland on the A1 at Grant's House.
Next tonight, when Sir Chris Hoy opened up about his terminal prostate cancer diagnosis, there was an outpouring of support, but it also prompted a discussion about how detection could be improved. Now, researchers at Heriot-Watt University and the Western General in Edinburgh are running a trial which involves injecting microscopic bubbles into the bloodstream, which are tracked by ultrasound as they flow to the prostate. Any cancerous tissue is then picked up in the imaging. It's hoped it could eventually help people like Gary Tate, who was diagnosed 6 years ago.
I was going to the toilet pretty regularly, especially at night time, which is a feature of potentially prostate cancer. Obviously at that time, not sure what it was or if it was anything of an issue. I would say it's worse for the family than me, actually. And that's has a big bearing on decision making. So I got a lot of support. I was very, very lucky. Incredible support from my wife and two girls.
Well, let's speak now to Professor Alan McNeill, who's a consultant urologist at the Western General Hospital. Good evening to you. Thanks so much for coming in. How significant do you think this research could end up being with helping detection?
In time, it could become very significant. The current pathway to diagnose prostate cancer involves a blood test called a PSA, which can be done in your GP practice. If it's elevated at the moment, men will go on to the hospital where they'll have an MRI scan. MRI scanners are expensive and require radiologists to interpret them. And the technology we're developing, or Heriot-Watt are developing, and we're helping them evaluate, involves using ultrasound scan to detect prostate cancer. Now, this has been used before, but what is novel about the technique is the injection of these micro bubbles, which can be tracked on video through the prostate, and then a very sophisticated algorithm is used to create images of where the vascular density is greatest, which is usually indicative of a prostate cancer. And that can be more sensitive than the MRI scan in these first few patients we've examined.
So potentially really significant. In terms of a timescale, what will happen now and when do you think this might be able to be used clinically?
Well, this is really a pilot study of some 25 men, and we're applying for grant funding to undertake a much larger study. So this will be several years in the making, but it could really help us direct biopsies more accurately, direct focal treatment for prostate cancer more accurately, and save MRI scans.
We spoke when Sir Chris Hoy got his diagnosis, and you talked about detection, how little progress there'd actually been over recent years detecting prostate cancer.
Well, we're seeing more and more men presenting with prostate cancer, which is good news in the sense that this should reduce the number of men dying of prostate cancer in the years to come. The problem with prostate cancer detection is that we don't yet have a screening program because we don't yet have tests that are good enough to select out the men who are most at risk of significant prostate cancer. Hence, the PSA test leads on to these more sophisticated tests. It would be fabulous if we had something somewhere in between the PSA test and these other scans.
Remind us who is most at risk of prostate cancer.
So men with a family history, so a first-degree relative, will have twice the risk of a normal man. So let's say 1 in 8 men will have a lifetime risk of prostate cancer, and that will go to 1 in 4 if they have one relative, and doubles again to 1 in 2 if they have 2 first-degree relatives. So men who have that sort of family history, I would suggest they go and talk to their GP aged 45 and request a PSA or discuss having a PSA test. And for all other men aged 50 and upwards, they're entitled to go and talk to their GPs about having a PSA. And they shouldn't wait until they think they have symptoms, because very often and most commonly prostate cancer has no symptoms at its earliest, most curable stages.
Okay, well, really important advice there, and we also wish you luck with this research as it goes forward. We look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for coming in tonight,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us on the News at 7 tonight. Still to come. Susie McCabe tells us about the health scare which inspired her latest show for the Glasgow Comedy Festival.
A bitterly cold night on the way in the countryside, potentially as low as -10, and then another very cold night tomorrow night too. I'll have a full forecast at the end of the programme.
Stay with us for all of that. It is still to come in just a few minutes on tonight's programme. But first, it's Sport Time with Lewis.
Thanks very much, Laura. Hello there. Well, there is no rest for these managers and their teams as the hectic fixture schedule continues tonight with a couple more Premiership games. Brendan Rodgers' Celtic host Jim Goodwin's Dundee United, and Derek McInnes's Kilmarnock are up against Motherwell, and that man over there, Stuart Kettlewell, is in the stand through suspension. But let's go back and focus on that game at Celtic Park, shall we? Celtic, of course, flying high at the top of the table, and they take on a United side who've impressed on their return to the top flight indeed. In third place they sit just now. Teams are in, so let's take a look. Celtic stick with the same 11 that beat St Mirren, while United make 5 changes from their defeat to Hearts, with the league's top scorer Sam Dalby on the bench. Earlier, I spoke to former Celtic and United player Darren Jackson, who started by praising Celtic's form this season, despite a sore defeat in the recent Old Firm derby.
Yes, it was a blip, and it was a bad blip, and they know that. They don't have to be told, because there's not been too many, and their form has been incredible. The consistency of really every player has been astonishing, really. The levels that they've played at. So it'll be a hard game tonight for Dundee United, without a doubt.
Absolutely. I want to touch on what you think the atmosphere might be like at Celtic Park tonight, because there were some interesting comments from Brendan Rodgers off the back of their victory over St Mirren, wasn't there, in relation to Kieran Tierney and the fans chanting. What did you make of his comments?
I can see both sides. I can see where Brendan's coming from 100%. He's trying to kind of not defend Greg Taylor for what Greg Taylor's done. He just doesn't want one of his players kind of feeling inferior, that there could be the prospect of Kieran Tierney coming back. So that's where I get the fans coming from, the excitement of the prospect of Kieran coming back. But listen, Brendan, I don't mean he can say what he wants, but he really can. For what he's achieved at Celtic in the 2 spells is just astonishing, really. It's incredible, the consistency of the manager.
Your other former club, of course, they are going incredibly well, aren't they, in 3rd? But do you see this as being a stretch too far?
Listen, which I think they've done amazingly well. Football is like team. The recruitment is massive, and I think they've got recruitment really right. I could mention quite a few of the players. I mean, obviously Dalby is the one who's taken all the headlines. Tonight will be hard. They'll have worked on probably mostly the game without the ball. You could say Celtic will probably have 70% of the ball. But it's what they do with the 30%. Can they be brave? Can they be positive when they get the ball and have a go at Celtic? But they know it's going to be difficult. So they'll be happy the way things are going, but they'll be confident tonight going into the game.
Absolutely. There is an intriguing game as well at Rugby Park tonight, of course. Kelly hosting Motherwell. It's going to be an intriguing one, given that Stuart Kettlewell will, of course, be in the stands. But how do you see that one going? It's quite a tough one to call, isn't it, that game?
It is a tough one because you always think Kilmarnock at home, it's very hard. Derek would be really disappointed with the result on Sunday. I was actually at the Motherwell game and they played very well. Two great goals they scored. Okay, the sending off does make a difference in the game, and Aberdeen's confidence seems to be shattered just now. But Motherwell took full advantage, and as I say, I thought the 2 goals they scored were fantastic.
So yes, 2 games tonight. Another one tomorrow when Rangers travel to Dundee, and Ibrox boss Philippe Clement admits that he'll need to be creative with his squad as he deals with a number of injuries. Dujon Sterling is a doubt after going off injured in the draw with Hibs on Sunday. He could join Leon Balogun, Jack Butland, John Souttar, Narecio Casemiro, Tom Lawrence and James Tavernier, the list goes on, who are already on the sidelines, while Nicholas Raskan is suspended.
It creates also opportunities for other people to stand up who maybe didn't have a chance if all these players were fit to show themselves. Now they have the opportunity to show themselves, and you come in moments in all the clubs in the world that you can get really positive surprises, and I count on that tomorrow.
An intriguing one tomorrow, and there is plenty more to catch up with ahead of that game over on the BBC Sport website. There are, of course, live updates from tonight's matches too, and you can read what the man tasked with delivering the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow had to say about the event coming to Scotland in 2026. So yes, love a midweek, Laura. Can't wait to see how the action pans out, but it is going to be freezing for the fans.
I hope they've got their thermal vests on, all of them.
The wee heaters in the gloves as well. They're always a good trick.
Cheers, Lewis. Thanks for now. Now, it is cold, it's dark, and it's January, so we could all do with something to look forward to, couldn't we? Well, the Glasgow International Comedy Festival isn't until March, but the schedule's been unveiled and a host of big names have signed up, including Craig Hill, Jenny Eclair, Russell Kane and the former MP, Mary Black. Susie McCabe will also debut her new show in her hometown. I caught up with her earlier. But first, here's a quick look at her in action.
On TV in the 1980s looked and sounded like Princess Diana. Right, that's how they had the haircut, they spoke like her, they had the big long legs. That was the image. Nowadays you put on the TV and it's like, hiya, change the channel, oh hiya hen. Sometimes even I'm flicking through the telly and I say to Nicola, let's just put on songs of praise. If you're a local act, if you're from Glasgow, from Scotland, this gives you a sense of purpose regardless of what level you're at. It gives you a reason to write an hour-long show. It gives you good training and practice for going to the Fringe. But it also allows you that if you're an act from elsewhere in the UK or elsewhere in the world, you can come and try out stuff, work up your show, do all the stuff that we have to do pre-Fringe. You get to do it in Glasgow in March, and it's a real good kind of kick-on for the rest of your year.
And it is an international event as well.
Yes.
It's global. What kind of a difference does that make, and how good is that for Glasgow as a host city?
I think it's such a good thing because it puts Glasgow on the map with regards to the arts and the creativity. It draws people in because everyone all over the world's like, my dream's to go to Edinburgh. You know, if you're a comedian in Australia, it's like my dream's to go to Edinburgh. But actually, if you know that You can come to the UK and you can come to Glasgow, which is 40 miles down the road from Edinburgh, try out stuff and get a feel for the country and get a feel for the culture. That's just as helpful as, say, going to London.
Now, your new show is called Best Behaviour. We're hoping that that is not the case, of course.
Well, no,
I'm sure it's not the case.
If anyone's ever seen any of my shows, they'll know that that's not the case. Not yet. My show is about me having a heart attack.
Literally?
Literally having a heart attack and then having to kind of change your life and then look at the absurdities of life through that kind of prism and everything that you go through. And it is quite a lot of fun. Seems to be quite well received as I'm trying out material, so I'm pretty chuffed with that.
I did not know you'd had a heart attack.
Yeah, 25th of July 2024, and I was in Bristol. And it's a real, and I think that's the thing with comedy, and when you're a comedian, you look at everything that maybe happens in your life, that happens in the world, and you try and look at the absurdity of it and not so much make fun of it, but kind of go, this is a bit ridiculous, and let's have a chat about it. Let's have a chat about facing your own mortality at like age 44, but let's talk about our attitudes to that compared to other people's attitudes. And I think it's a really interesting way to look at something that was so seismic in your life.
Yeah. How are you feeling now?
Great, fighting fit. I planked this morning for 3 minutes. I feel, basically I'm an athlete. I'm thinking Comedy Festival, Commonwealth Games. So that's what I'm thinking. Not the hurdles, but other than that, fine.
You're ready for
maybe more the hockey.
It's so nice to see you. Delighted to hear that you're feeling good as well.
Yes, thank
I wasn't
you.
expecting the inspiration for the show to be having a heart attack, but we all look forward to hearing it.
Listen, as a comedian, you've just got to do what you've got to do to get that Fringe show ready.
Everything is copy.
Indeed.
Susie, enjoy the Comedy Festival. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura.
There you go, loads to look forward to, including Susie McCabe at the Glasgow International Comedy Festival. It's happening from the 12th to the 30th of March. Right, time for the weather. I feel like it's all we're talking about right now, Chris.
Well, it's cold, isn't it?
It really is, but when it's not inconvenient, it's beautiful.
Yes, and let me show you some pictures from our weather watchers today, because beautiful is the word. Lovely pictures coming into us. Thanks, Laura. Take a look at this one, actually. These are some that have caught our eye today. Great picture here from one of our weather watchers, actually called Highland Rose in Roybridge. Blue sky and the snow on the ground there and the ice. And this is a rather familiar scene as well. The kelpies there in Falkirk from our weather watcher Maggie, bathed in that cold morning light. It was cold this morning, and a stunning picture there from the Isle of Arran from Stuart, probably taken from Goat Fell maybe, I'm not entirely sure. That could be Glen Rosa, couldn't it? Let's take a look at the forecast in the coming days, because yes, we have a lot of cold weather and it is sticking with us. You can see as we head through the weekend, high pressure established overhead, keeping things dry and settled, the cold air in play, and then the change as we head through towards Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. Southwesterly winds begin to arrive, turning things milder. Before we get there, overnight tonight, like the last couple of nights, the Met Office yellow warning for the risk of snow showers and ice across the north of the mainland and in towards the Northern Isles and Western Isles. And that means it's a cold start to the day tomorrow, actually around the north coast above freezing, with a breeze and a few rain, sleet or snow showers. Inland, those showers will be of snow. And then south of the Cairngorms, it's dry, but it's certainly cold, and there will likely be some stubborn areas of freezing fog across parts of the southwest. These are the temperatures in towns and cities at 8 a.m, -3, -4. Yes, cold. Now, as we head through the course of Thursday, you'll see these showers still with us across the north and the northeast. Again, snowy inland. Central and southern parts, some sunshine, but cold. And then overnight tomorrow night, once again, a widespread hard frost, -6, -7 in towns and cities. In the countryside, it will be colder. If there's snow on the ground where you are, -15 to -18, an outside chance of -20. So likely to be the coldest night of winter so far. And then looking ahead towards Friday to Sunday. Well, on Saturday, we've got this little feature here moving in, bringing the spell of potentially light snow, and then that milder air arrives from Sunday onwards. But you can see on Friday, it's largely bright and sunny with temperatures barely above freezing. So that's what we call an ice day. And then on Saturday, cloudier skies with that little system working in, bringing perhaps a chance of light snow almost anywhere, but it moves through fairly quickly, still cold. And then as we head through Sunday and into next week, you can see the yellows and the oranges on the chart there, that milder air moving its way in, and temperatures really will recover. So instead of sub-zero by day, actually we could be up to around double digits by the time we reach Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Laura.
Nice to see the orange and the yellow coming in over the blue. Minus 20.
Potentially.
Yikes. Chris, thank you. And thank you so much for your company tonight on the News at 7. I am back tomorrow as Scotland gears up for what could be the coldest night of the winter so far. We will take you live to the village that holds the record for the lowest UK temperature ever. We're sending Chris, not me. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.